All roads lead to Rome. You've heard that phrase your entire life, but do you know what it actually means? At its peak, the Roman Empire built over 250,000 miles of roads, connecting every corner of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East to one city. One city that commanded 45 million people. One city whose laws, language, and architecture still shape your daily life, right now, 1,600 years after it fell. The Constitution of the United States, built on Roman Republican principles. Your calendar? Roman. The months of the year? Named by Romans. The language of law, medicine, and science? Latin. Roman. Rome wasn't just an empire. Rome was an operating system. And the Western world is still running on it. This is part 3 of the story of Europe, and it starts with a murder. In the beginning, Rome was nothing, a small collection of villages on 7 hills above the Tiber River in central Italy. Founded, according to legend, by twins named Romulus and Remus, raised by a wolf, descendants of a Trojan hero named Aeneas. The legend is, of course, mythology. The reality is more interesting. Rome started as a monarchy, ruled by kings, but in 509 BC, the same era when Athens was inventing democracy, the Romans did something different. They overthrew their king, dragged him out of power, and decided, never again will one man rule Rome. Instead of a democracy, they created a republic, res publica, the public thing, the common good. Power was divided. 2 consuls, elected annually, shared executive authority. The Senate, a council of aristocrats, debated and advised. Popular assemblies gave common citizens a voice. It wasn't perfect. The wealthy had far more power than the poor. Slaves had no rights at all. Women were excluded from politics entirely. But the principle that power should be divided, checked, and balanced against itself was revolutionary. It is the direct ancestor of the United States government. The Senate, the consuls, the assemblies, all of it echoes in Washington, D.C., 2,500 years later. For 2 centuries, the Roman Republic grew, first dominating central Italy, then southern Italy, then defeating Carthage, the great North African power in the Punic Wars, one of the most brutal series of conflicts the ancient Mediterranean had ever seen. By 100 BC, Rome controlled the entire Mediterranean coastline. But success brought a crisis that would tear the Republic apart. Gaius Julius Caesar was born in 100 BC into an old but not particularly wealthy patrician family. He was brilliant, charismatic, ruthlessly ambitious, and he understood something about power that most politicians miss. It is always ultimately backed by force. Caesar spent years climbing the political ladder, making alliances, taking bribes, taking risks. He racked up enormous debts, buying popularity. Then he did what Roman politicians with debts and ambition always did. He went to war. In 58 BC, Caesar took command of Roman forces in Gaul, the region we now call France, Belgium, and Switzerland, and spent 9 years conquering it. Conquering is a tidy word for what actually happened. Caesar's own accounts describe it with chilling calm. Entire populations enslaved. Villages burned. 1 million people killed. Another million enslaved. He wrote it all down himself in a military memoir, the Commentari de Bello Gallico.
that Latin students have been forced to read for 2,000 years. But the conquest made him unstoppable. He had wealth, he had a veteran army that was loyal to him personally, and he had the one thing the Senate feared more than anything:
popularity with the people. In 49 BC, the Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, the legal boundary of Rome's home territory, with his army intact. That crossing was treason. It was an act of war against his own government, and he knew it. He reportedly said as he crossed, "The die is cast. There was no going back." He marched on Rome. His rival, Pompey, fled. Within 3 years, Caesar controlled the entire Roman world. The Senate, desperate, gave him the title they had abolished 400 years earlier: dictator. And then they gave him something worse: dictator perpetuo. Dictator for life. The Roman Republic, that great experiment in shared power, was over in all but name. It lasted exactly as long as it took for one man to become ambitious enough to end it. On March 15th, 44 BC, the Ides of March, 23 senators surrounded Julius Caesar in the theater of Pompey. Each one stabbed him. He fell at the base of a statue of Pompey, his old rival, and died in a pool of his own blood. They thought they had saved the Republic. They had no idea they had just started a civil war that would produce something far more powerful than Caesar. They had no idea they had just started a civil war that would produce something far more powerful than Caesar. Caesar's adopted son and heir, Octavian, was only 18 when his father was murdered. Everyone underestimated him. That was a mistake. Over the next decade, Octavian outmaneuvered every rival, forming alliances, breaking them at the right moment, defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, and emerging as the sole ruler of the Roman world. He was careful about what he called himself. Not king, not dictator. Caesar's fate had made that word dangerous. He called himself princeps, the first citizen, and Augustus, the revered one. The Senate gave him these titles willingly because after a century of civil wars and chaos, Rome desperately wanted peace. Augustus gave them peace. 40 years of it. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Under Augustus, Rome transformed. He boasted that he had found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. He was not exaggerating. The Forum of Augustus, the Areopagus, temples, basilicas, roads, aqueducts. Rome became the most magnificent city on earth, with over 1 million people, the largest city in the Western world for the next 1,000 years. But Augustus understood something more subtle than building. He understood image, narrative, what we would today call branding. His face appeared on coins across the empire, millions of them. Every Roman soldier, merchant, and farmer held an image of Augustus in their hand every time they made a purchase. He commissioned poetry, Virgil's Aeneid, to give Rome a grand origin myth connecting it to ancient Troy and the gods. He reformed the calendar, the tax system, the military. He created the Roman civil service, professional administrators who could govern provinces efficiently. He invented, essentially, the modern state. And crucially, he figured out how to hold together 45 million people of dozens of different ethnicities religions, and languages under one government? The answer was law. Universal, consistent, written law. Roman citizenship, and with it legal protection, extended gradually across the empire, regardless of origin. By the year 212 AD, every free person in the Roman Empire, from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria, was a Roman citizen. The most radical act of political inclusion the ancient world had ever seen. At its height in around 100 AD under Emperor Trajan, the Roman Empire stretched from Scotland to Mesopotamia. It contained 45 million people. It built roads you can still drive on today, aqueducts you can still see standing, buildings you can still walk through. Roman engineers were among the most sophisticated in the ancient world. The Pantheon, a temple in Rome with a concrete dome larger than any structure built in the next 1,300 years, still stands intact today. Built in 125 AD, unreinforced concrete, still standing. Modern engineers are still studying how. The Colosseum held 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. It had a retractable awning, underground animal pens with elevators, a drainage system, numbered seats with ticket stops. Rome ran water to its citizens through 415 miles of aqueducts, delivering clean water with such precision that the average Roman citizen used more water per day than the average person in the modern world. But beneath all of this engineering marvel, something was going wrong. The empire was simply too large to govern effectively with the technology of the ancient world. Communications were slow. A letter from Rome to the eastern frontier could take weeks. Military responses to crises took months. The army, originally the engine of Roman conquest, was becoming the empire's greatest vulnerability. Generals who controlled armies also controlled the ability to become emperor. Between 235 and 284 AD, Rome had 26 different emperors. Most of them were assassinated. The economy was strained by constant military spending. The currency was debased, too much silver removed from the coins, causing inflation. Disease swept through the empire. The Antonine Plague, then the Plague of Cyprian. Millions died, and from the east and north, pressure, constant increasing pressure. Persian armies pressing on the eastern frontier, Germanic tribes pressing on the Rhine and Danube. The empire was being squeezed from all sides. And then, from the most unexpected direction of all, came the force that would change Rome forever. Not an army, not a plague, not an economic crisis, a religion. Christianity had been spreading through the Roman Empire for 3 centuries, quietly, persistently, through the networks of the poor, the enslaved, the marginalized. It offered something the Roman gods couldn't: personal relationship with a God who loved you, forgiveness, community, and the promise of eternal life. By the early 4th century, it had spread to every corner of the empire. In 312 AD, Emperor Constantine, about to fight for control of Rome, reportedly saw a vision, a Christian symbol in the sky, a voice, "In this sign, conquer." He won the battle. He credited Christianity. And in 313 AD, he issued the Edict of Milan, making Christianity legal throughout the Roman Empire. Within a century, it would be the official state religion. The empire that had crucified Jesus of Nazareth in a remote province now worshipped him as God. But Christianity could not save Rome from its structural collapse. In 376 AD, the Goths, a Germanic people, crossed the Danube River, fleeing from the Huns attacking from the east. They came as refugees. Rome let them in.
Then Rome's administrators abused them, cheated them, starved them. The Goths revolted. They defeated a Roman army at the Battle of Adrianople and killed Emperor Valens.
It was the beginning of the end. Wave after wave of Germanic peoples pushed into the empire, not all as conquerors. Many simply wanted to live within the safety of Rome's borders, but the weight was too much. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome itself, the first time in 800 years that a foreign army had entered the Eternal City. The psychological shock was immense. In 476 AD, the last Western Roman emperor, a teenager named Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer. No battle, no dramatic last stand, just your services are no longer required. The Western Roman Empire was over. But here's what's extraordinary. Rome didn't really fall, it transformed. The language survived, as French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian. The law survived, as the basis of most European legal systems. The church survived. Rome became the seat of a new kind of power. And the Germanic peoples who conquered Rome, they were so dazzled by what they found that they spent the next 1,000 years trying to rebuild it. Rome had fallen. The cities emptied. The roads crumbled. Trade collapsed. Literacy plummeted. Europe entered what historians used to call the Dark Ages, but something extraordinary was happening in the darkness. In monasteries, monks were copying ancient texts by hand, preserving Greek philosophy, Roman law, and scientific knowledge that would otherwise have been lost forever. In Ireland, that remote island at the edge of the world, a new form of Christianity was developing, passionate, artistic, and wildly missionary. And in the ruins of the Roman world, a new power was about to emerge, a Frankish warlord named Charles, who would one day be called Charlemagne, Charles the Great. He would unite more of Europe than anyone since Augustus. He would create something that looks, from a distance, startlingly like the European Union. And standing opposite him from the south came a force that no one in Europe expected. A new religion, a new empire, a new civilization. Islam. In Part 4, we watch Europe get caught between two worlds and somehow find itself in the collision. Subscribe to Drawn and Buried right now and hit the bell so you don't miss Part 4. Charlemagne, the Crusades, the Moors of Spain, the most traumatic clash of civilizations in European history, and the surprising ways it made Europe stronger. It's coming. Don't miss it. Rome had fallen. The cities emptied. The roads crumbled. Trade collapsed. Literacy plummeted. Europe entered what historians used to call the Dark Ages. But something extraordinary was happening in the darkness. In monasteries, monks were copying ancient texts by hand, preserving Greek philosophy, Roman law, and scientific knowledge that would otherwise have been lost forever. In Ireland, that remote island at the edge of the world, a new form of Christianity was developing, passionate, artistic, and wildly missionary. And in the ruins of the Roman world, a new power was about to emerge. A Frankish warlord named Charles, who would one day be called Charlemagne, Charles the Great. He would unite more of Europe than anyone since Augustus. He would create something that looks, from a distance, startlingly like the European Union. And standing opposite him, from the south, came a force that no one in Europe expected. A new religion, a new empire, a new civilization. Islam. In Part 4, we watch Europe get caught between two worlds and somehow find itself in the collision.